Now, if you remember last week, we started the story of Joseph and his technicolor coat of many colors. This week, we're going to divert off that just a little bit. But we will pick up with Joseph next week. So today, we're going to dive into the compelling story that unfolds in the ancient land of Canaan. Now, picture this. Judah, a son of Jacob, Israel, is a man seeking his own path, and he decides to live away from his brothers and move to Canaan. But there's some big trouble a-coming. We're calling this one, What's the Deal with the Graphic Sexual Behavior Involving Judah and His Son? Now, the events of Genesis 38 take place during Joseph's time as a slave in Egypt. Last week's story, and sometime before he's reunited with his brothers in Genesis 45. I'm reading now from Genesis 38, 1 through 5. It came to pass at that time that Judah departed from his brothers and visited a certain Adulamite, whose name was Hirah. And Judah saw there a daughter of a certain Canaanite, whose name was Shua. And he married her, and he went to her. So she conceived and bore a son, and he called him She conceived again and bore a son, and she called his name Onan. And she conceived yet again and bore a son, and called his name Shelah. He was at Jezebel when she bore him. As time rolls on, Judah finds a suitable bride for his firstborn son, and he picks a woman named Tamar, a choice that seems promising at first. However, things take a dark turn. Turns out to be quite wicked in the eyes of the Lord, leading to his premature death. But in those times, there was this custom known as the Levirate marriage. It's an important tradition meant to keep family lines alive. So Judah turns to his second son, Onan, and instructs him to step up. And his task was to fulfill what would have been duty and provide Tamar with a child to carry on the family legacy. The family name. However, Onan has his own plans, and he's not interested in supporting his brother's children. However, he has no objection to free sex. So he takes advantage of the situation, and whenever he has intercourse with Tamar, he interrupts the act at the last moment to avoid conception. God sees Onan's practice, deliberately using Tamar for sex while avoiding the responsibility of his brother's legacy. Now, this is huge in that society. It's viewed as a heinous sin, and the whole thing doesn't sit well with the Lord either. And soon enough, Onan meets with his own deadly fate. Now follow along in Genesis 38:11. Then Judah said to Tamar, his daughter-in-law, "Remain a widow in your father's house until my son Shelah is grown." For he said, "Lest he also die like his brothers." And Tamar went and dwelt in her father's house. So some time passes, and a new chapter in Judah's life begins. See, his wife Shua, she passes away, leaving him in grief. And not long after that, Judah takes a trip to a place where he's tending his sheep near Tamar. Now, she's been waiting a long time and was fully aware that Shelah was grown, and she was not given him as a wife. So after learning that Judah was near, she hatches a plan of her own. Disguising herself as a prostitute, she removes her widow's garments, adorns herself with a veil, and positions herself on the road where Judah would pass. The plan is described in Genesis 38:15 through 18. When Judah saw her, he thought she was a harlot because she had covered her face. And then he turned to her by the way and said, "Please let me come in to you." For he did not know that she was his daughter-in-law. So she said, "What will you give me that you may come in to me?" And he said, "I will send a young goat from the flock." So she said, "Will you give me a pledge till you send it?" Then he said, "What pledge shall I give you?" So she said, "Your signet and cord and your staff that is in your hand." Then he gave them to her, and he went in to her, and she conceived by him. Now, after this encounter, Tamar goes back home, holding on to the pledge that reveals Judah's identity. Meanwhile, Judah tries to send a goat to settle his debt. Oddly enough, nobody can assist him in finding this prostitute. 3 months passes, and news reaches Judah that Tamar is pregnant. Angered by the perceived scandal, he calls for her to be burned to death. But wait, the plot thickens. Tamar has prepared for this. To defend herself, she produces the crucial items that belong to Judah. That's right, the signet, cord, and his staff. Bam! The evidence of his own wrongdoing is staring at him right in the face. With deep shame, he realizes that he's wronged Tamar. Acknowledging his own bad behavior, he admits that he should have been more forthcoming with Shelah and Tamar's marriage. Now, as this dramatic tale wraps up, Tamar gives birth to twins, a significant turn in her life after all that has transpired. And she names them Perez and Zerah, marking their entrance into the world in a way that signifies both triumph and resilience amid hardship. Now, this story intricately weaves themes of duty, recognition of wrongdoing, and the complexities of relationships within a patriarchal society. It dives into the heart of the human experience, the struggles, the deceit, and ultimately redemption. Despite the trials faced, Tamar emerges powerful, her cleverness shining brightly as she navigates through a world filled with challenges. The legacy of Judah and Tamar's twins would echo it for generations. You see, Perez's descendants included Boaz, who marries Ruth, and ultimately leads to the births of King David and Jesus himself.